Please clap.
Hey everyone.
Jeb.
Hey everyone. It's actually Jeb Bush, or actually Fleb Bush, whatever you want to call me. And I've been making a bunch of content around UFC Strike lately. I'm a really big UFC fan. I'm really excited about UFC Strike, what they're doing right now and what they're going to do in the future. And it's been a lot of fun to take a dive into that with some of my friends like Seth. However, I realized if I'm going to keep making consistent UFC Strike content like I plan to, I think it'd be important to make a video on how to dive a little deeper into UFC Strike beyond just using their website and their marketplace. I think that has a lot of value, and that's why I've teamed up with Evaluate Market to go ahead and make a video showing how UFC Strike is integrated on their site, how you can track things, how you can quickly determine what the marketplace is doing, who has the supply, all that stuff. And I think that is super, super important. So we're going to jump right in. I'm on evaluate.market right now. We're going to hit UFC Strike. Right away, I love the presentation, the way this looks. We've got some really good information right here. This right here, I think, is pretty important. The total supply of all the NFTs. We know that most of the supply is the contender moments as well, since the champion moments are 1 out of 75. So this kind of gives you a big picture of just how many NFTs are on the marketplace, and you can kind of use that to correlate demand accordingly. We have the floor price here, the total sales today, transactions today. I think these numbers are a little low, so don't use them right now as an indication, because the market's been down for the last 12 or 13 hours in maintenance mode. But however, these are always useful numbers to just take a look at, to see how liquid things are, see if things are really moving or if maybe things have slowed down, et cetera, et cetera. So right off the bat, I love that we can filter these or order them in different ways. Right now, there's not really a lot of rarities. Like, obviously, there's the champion moment and the contenders, but I'm assuming rare and legendaries will probably come out with Series 1. But most importantly, I think the low to high or the high to low is the way to go here. And you can kind of see the floor on things here. Right now, there are not a ton of UFC moments, which is something I actually really, really like about the UFC Strike, and something that I think is super unique when comparing to other sports. UFC fighters fight a couple times a year, if that. So we're not going to see tons and tons and tons of moments of the best fighters. There's probably getting one moment a year, if that. So I think that's one reason why they were minted so high, but I think that's also why having a tool like this will be super helpful down the road, because not only can we see all these moments that are present, but here on the side we can kind of filter based on event type, whether it's a fight night or a UFC that you're looking for, the fighter themselves. I think this is the most useful tool, especially moving forward right here. Play type, right now, this doesn't matter, but maybe if there's some sort of flash challenge or challenge in general, play type is something important to be able to filter by. And obviously series, once again, as more moments roll out, that'll be more important. And right now, none of these filters exist on UFC Strike. So having Evaluate Market here is such a useful tool, in my opinion, to quickly analyze things and get a better picture of how things are looking. For example, we can look at KOs and we can see that, oh, look at a lot of these moments are KOs. So maybe if I'm trying to speculate on some sort of challenge in the future, buying a KO isn't necessarily, if the KO moment's required, there's plenty and plenty of supply of that. However, if we go ahead and we look at like a strangle or a submission, I guess, there's one contender moment, and it's the most expensive one already. So having that Chimaev is actually a very unique moment to own. And I couldn't tell by sorting here in the UFC marketplace. All I can use for the UFC Strike marketplace here is sorting by lowest ask and name. So I think that's one thing that's really important to realize is this kind of using evaluate market really gives you an edge to be able to look deeper into the entire supply, specific moments, specific fighters, etc., etc. And maybe UFC Strike will implement those later, but right now we're early. We're only in Series 0. So having that extra information is priceless to some degree. The next tab they have here is this activity tab. You can kind of just use it to track where these moments are standing. Once again, it's really nice right now because there's not a lot of moments to track. It also shows the latest sales, which kind of just gives you an idea of how quickly these things are kind of running out, and how quickly the demand is for them, which I think is really, really cool. And we can see the volume change, the volume here that's happened. And we can use this overall picture to kind of determine how the market is trending as a whole, which is always cool to see. So we can also go to the accounts. It just kind of shows the collector leaderboard. Right now, this might not be the most significant. It kind of just shows some pieces like your total valuation, your total purchase price, and your profits. Right now, since the market's so early, things are so early, none of these numbers really mean anything. But give it a couple months, and this could be something that's pretty important for a variety of reasons. We already saw the Adesanya challenge that just ended where you needed a net spend of $500. And the only way you could do that is either go into your Dapper wallet, download transaction history, and add it up, or you could come onto Evaluate Market, which UFC Strike even said in the Discord to come and check Evaluate Market out, and it would give you a number. And I used that to make sure I was over 500 in order to get this Adesanya moment. So super, super helpful in that sense. The other way we can look at Evaluate Market in UFC Strike and how it can be super helpful is if you go ahead and create an account and attach your UFC Strike profile to it, you can take a look along with whatever other NFTs you own. As you can see, I have Top Shot and All Day as well. And you can look at your specific collection, which I think, once again, super, super helpful here. So I can go in, I can see that my floor valuation is at 690. I haven't gotten the Adesanya moment yet. I expect this number to go up, but I'm still in the green, which is really cool, and I'm actually kind of surprised. I would have thought I'd be in the red after the Adesanya sell-off. Maybe we see more of those moments sell off once the Adesanya is in people's accounts. I think people might be holding just until they get the moment to be sure. Even though we did get a confirmation email letting us know that we had completed the challenge successfully. But we can look at my current NFT portfolio, so we can see that right now my Nagano, my Pimblet, like we can see like how I got them, what they're sitting at, whether I lost money or made money off of them. I would assume that most of these are at a loss right now because I bought up to 500 in order to get the Adesanya. I knew there was going to be a sell-off. I just figured the Adesanya would far outweigh the losses I take on these individual moments. We can go ahead and take a look at my purchases. Once again, this was very helpful in double checking to make sure I had the net spend I needed. And we can look at my sales, which, as you can see, I haven't sold a thing because I'm very, very bullish on UFC Strike. I feel like the UFC is doing a lot to promote it and make sure it's done right. And the UFC is built for promotion. People like Israel Adesanya are built for a product like UFC Strike. It plays to all their strengths so well. So I have diamond-handed so far. That could change in the future, but right now I feel very, very confident and excited about UFC Strike. And then the last thing I want to show with UFC Strike is that we can actually go ahead and go back to this items page, and we can look at the individual moments. And one of the reasons, honestly, one of the reasons I like this the most is just the quality of the moments. So let's go to Gary. Gary's one of my favorite moments. I think I have the most Garys in my collection out of any other UFC Strike moment. And just look at this. Like, this is beautiful. Like, the quality, it's bigger. Like, I don't know. To me, I like watching it almost more on Evaluate Market than I do on UFC Strike, which is kind of crazy. As we can see, we can kind of see the history of this moment, where it's gone and where it's kind of headed even right now. Once again, things are very early. We just had the Adesanya moment, net spin thing, and so you have to take all these numbers in with a grain of salt. However, these are important numbers to know. We can look at we know that the mint count is about 24,000 for all of them. The unique owners and total owned here is actually pretty crazy. So we know that there's some packs that were reserved. So it looks like there's around a little less than 3,000 that are still in packs. Well, it says right here, 2,972. But the fact that over 15,000 people own these 21,000 is actually really, really impressive. And once again, is just kind of a bullish sign to me. Gary is a up-and-coming fighter who just has all the confidence, the swagger, and the skills to back it up. So he's someone that I've paid a lot of attention to. And as we can see, his moment is at $14 still. Really 15, very close to 15. There's one or two sales it'll take. And this is after the Adesanya dump that we saw. So Gary bounced back pretty quickly, which is really, really interesting. And if we scroll down, obviously we can see the sales over time chart. This is one of my favorite things that Evaluate Market has for all, especially Dapper NFTs. So what I like to do is click on these buttons to remove certain serial numbers. So I don't care about the low serial numbers right now. I usually go ahead and remove everything, and I'll either keep the average sale or just the lowest serial numbers because I'm always more interested in the floor. So we can see this post Adesanya net spin sell-off right here. And we can see that it got down all the way to 8. So we can see that some people fire sold. But if we look at the current listings, we see that it's basically back to 15, which means either one of two things. It means either everyone is super hyped about Gary, which kind of makes sense. He could be the next Conor McGregor, very young fighter, but a lot of potential. And on top of that, he's very good at promoting himself. Or it could mean even bigger picture that people saw this dip in these deals and they pounced on them, which is really bullish on UFC Strike as a whole, regardless of the way you want to look at it. And we can zoom out a little more. Once again, I cannot stress enough that it is very important to take all this with a grain of salt, just because of the fact that UFC Strike is so new. Like, it's been less than a month that the marketplace has been open. So there's not enough data here to draw any really solid conclusions. But that being said, it's really interesting to study the post Adesanya dip and see which moments really took a hit, which ones dipped and bounced back, which ones kind of dipped and stayed where they were, or which ones just completely fell off. As more and more days pass and we get more and more data, we'll see that transpire. Also, we can go ahead and look at the transactions over time. The 7-day forecast of the transactions is what I usually look at, because it kind of gives you an indicator of where the moment is trending. However, if we zoom out a little bit more, once again, this is not extremely useful right now, but in a couple months it will be, because this is an outlier. This is an outlier for sure, just because it is very near the opening of the marketplace. So people are excited to get that $500 spin. People are excited to be on the marketplace. But as we can see, it's kind of calmed down and gotten pretty consistent. And then once again, this 15 is a little irrelevant right now because the marketplace has been in maintenance mode for the last 12 to 15 hours. So we can't use this as a valid data point for now. But looking at these 6 days, we can see, wow, Gary had some pretty solid volume. Even when the Adesanya moment was done, people still were interested in buying. And we can kind of see that both here in the sales over time, in the live transactions. We can see people paying some pretty high premiums for specific like low cereals, which I think is kind of crazy here. But you can see people are not just buying the floor either. People are spending on low cereals. And if we look at the transaction history, we don't see tons and tons of the same names. We see someone buying one or two, and then we see another buyer. This is a very healthy sign of this moment. And these are all super, super valuable things to like have when you're trying to determine if you should buy a UFC strike moment. And this is stuff that is just not readily available right now on their website. If we go and look at that same Gary moment, so we can see there's two $14 left, but there's nowhere for us to look at the transactions. So I have no idea, looking at this, that, wow, people might be a little more bullish on this moment than I think, because people are willing to spend extra money for these low cereals. And that's important to note. If this was a fighter like Sanders, who is kind of at the bottom, if we go to the marketplace, I think he's at $4 right now. He might be even lower. He's one of the probably worst moments in this set, sitting at $5. And you can see how thick this $5 wall is. So I would take a guess, and we can go ahead and look and see if this guess is right. But I would guess that maybe people aren't spending the extra money on a low cereal Sanders. So let's take a look. And as you can see, his chart is way different here than Gary's. As we saw, Gary's consistently going up with the average sale price. With Sanders, we see this bump, and then it's going right back down. So with the average sale price with Gary going up, that means people are buying lower cereals. People are spending extra money. While with Gary, this is that post-Adesanya sell-off we talked about. And we can go to the transactions, or we can go here even. You can see it's just kind of going down. And this is before the Adesanya deadline happened, and this is after. But we see it trending downwards regardless, which just shows you that, hey, like maybe the volume here is decent. It's still not as high as Gary was. But we can look at someone's paying $15 for a lower cereal. Someone's paying, questionable move here, buying a 25 for $99. But there's not nearly as many low cereal buys here. And I think that is super, super, super important to look at. And that is insight you can only find on Evaluate Market right now. So once again, I cannot stress enough, if you are really trying to get into UFC Strike, and maybe you don't know the most about every single fighter on this site, well, one, you can watch my YouTube videos where me and Seth go over them a little bit more. So hopefully that would help you. And then two, you can come to Evaluate Market and look at the data, the extra data that you're not going to get on UFC Strike. The average sale price, the unique owners to total owned. Once again, like I said, this will matter more months from now. Right now, everything's a little too fresh, a little too new. So those numbers can't exactly tell us anything. But we look at the sales over time. We can see this trend downwards before the trending downward was happening before the Adesanya deadline. We can see the transactions over time are lower than Gary that we just looked at. And we can look at the transactions, and besides one or two outliers here, like Hot Baller, we can see that no one wants to spend that extra money to get the low cereal. These are all great indicators that, hey, maybe if I'm trying to complete Series 0, obviously I need a Sanders. But maybe I shouldn't stack Sanders at $4 hoping he goes higher, because it looks like he doesn't have a lot of potential just from a crowdsourced data perspective. So I think this is really important, and this is why I love Evaluate Market, and this is why I think it is the best. I think it's the only tool for UFC Strike right now, but if it's not, as far as I've seen, this one's the best one. I think it gives a very accurate picture of UFC Strike. And I'm very excited a month from now when more data comes in to take another look at this and really see what it's doing. So before I end this video, I just really quick want to look at one more fighter because I think this is something that's really, really special, and that's McKinney. McKinney is the only fighter to have a fight since the launch of the marketplace, and it happened before the Adesanya challenge ended. So it was a great example of what could happen when one of these fighters takes a W. And I think the best thing we can do is look at the sales over time. So I'm just going to go straight to 30 days because we want the broad scope of things. I'm going to remove some outliers, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of everything except the floor. Now, as we can see early on, McKinney was going for around 7 to 8. He dipped for a little, went back up to around 15, got all the way to 20. And then we see it take a spike right here. And that's when McKinney won his fight. This moment pumped on the 26th when he was an underdog and he won. And we can look at the transactions over time. And I mean, we see this thing is selling a lot. But we can see on the 26th, this is the highest number of sales, and it happened because he won. So once again, I think this is a great indicator and a great tool that can be used to kind of determine if you want to bet on a fighter or not as they're entering a fight. Because unlike Top Shot, where like, you know, a player has a bad game and people are like, oh, he'll get out of a slump or whatever, something like that. The UFC is very definitive. You either win or you lose. And I feel like that will have a direct and serious impact on UFC strike moments because there is the most direct correlation to the sport compared to All Day or Top Shot. And I think, once again, if you have a tool like Evaluate Market, it can really help give you the edge by providing you with a lot of extra data that you're not going to find on UFC Strike right now. So yeah, I think I'm going to end this video here. I hope it taught you how to use a tool like Evaluate Market alongside browsing the UFC Strike marketplace in order to make more strategic and better educated buys. I think right now the marketplace is super young. There's a lot of opportunity. A lot of these moments are of fighters who are very young. This McKinney moment is his debut fight. He just had another fight. He is very young, has a lot of potential, and being able to get in on the ground floor for McKinney, I think or other fighters, is a great opportunity. And using Evaluate Market will help you determine when and how you should strike, pun intended. Thanks for coming and checking this video out. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me a lot, and I love to have conversations in the comments about UFC Strike. It's been a lot of fun. This has been actually Jeb Bush, and I'll see you guys next video. Please clap.